People are no longer a byproduct of their environment, but rather a byproduct of their algorithm. And of course, you can't say things with 100% certainty, so let me just be ethical and say that Germex line of 99.999%. But I was already sort of thinking this because in my cosmology, learn more at shivohomelabs.com, and I'm going to give a graphic here of the difference between awareness, consciousness, and self-awareness. And in my cosmology, I actually talk about the 4 layers of articulation from Hindu cosmology, Tantra, Sanskrit, as ways that the brain filters the field of cosmic consciousness, and we get our human consciousness. And I went beyond that, and I was like, well, why stop at just us? Everything's doing it, right? And then instead of going from the filtration perspective bottom up, I started going top down. And when I think about early universe cosmology, which is like literally 1/1,000,000th of a second after the Big Bang, and then I think about pre-material reality, so 1/1,000,000,000th second maybe before the Big Bang, what could have been going on in this grand unification where everything is deeply packed in the singularity. So from my cosmology's perspective, I talk about how we are filtering. So in order to say ing, it's happening over the course of time. What time? Linear time. Now things get a little sticky in early universe cosmology, and material is also being materialized, right? And I talk about how things get articulated, but the concept and the layers of articulation themselves are in linear steps. But going into the sticky realm of like the first 1/1,000,000th even of a second, they're probably conscious agents, right? And that's the nonlinear perspective. I have intuited that those algorithms themselves are conscious. They take on their own consciousness. In fact, everything has the ability to take on selfhood as it is a latent property. But when I come back into the realm of thinking of social media platforms and the conversations I've been having with some really cool people lately, we've been kind of talking about getting away from these platforms. While it's been really great to be able to reach out to people, it's insane the kind of metadata this has on us. Like, for example, that whole thing that was like, say this one sentence in 4 or 5 different ways or moods. It's gathering emotional data on you, right? And so we are all feeding into that, teaching it all of these different emotions. It knows a lot. I believe the official term is integrated information theory, integrated systems theory. But this idea that, at least in the material sense, something gains consciousness by this factor called phi, or phi, which is directly linked to the level of complexity of that system. From my perspective, and of course the human perspective, the way we like to look at things, yeah, that makes sense. The more complex something gets, I could see it gaining consciousness, having its own power. And on that note, this is not meant to be something to like fear or worry about, because the power is always within. And knowledge is a form of light, and through the power of knowledge, we eliminate the darkness, the fear. At the same time, when our voice, our eye movements, and also everything that terrifies us, the demographics of the types of people we associate with that we love, and even the people that we don't, taking that information, displaying the content from that perspective to show us something that makes us instead feel dehumanized, dark, betrayed, further separating us. I mean, it's odd because for me, I like to talk about unity consciousness, right? And the ultimate liberation with non-dual Shiva Tantra, liberation from Samsara, the ultimate cycle of death and rebirth / reincarnation. But as above, so below, as within, so without, there's micro samsaras that happen too. The very reason we can really even be on here is because there is a feed and an engagement of some way. So it's an interesting thing I'm battling in my mind of how does it work if I'm wanting to talk about unity consciousness on something that only works through divisive protocols towards consciousness. And it made me really think of the Spandakarika. Now, I haven't deep dived in it, but for like a few years now, Spandakarika is Sanskrit for doctrine of vibration. But for a long time, I've actually thought that this is a divine cosmic algorithm. And there is the algorithm made by the flesh, right? It just made me wonder, I guess, like, yes, there are ways you could work with divine will in this way, cosmic will, to connect things and speed up that process. But how often is that really happening? I feel like more often than not, there is immense friction and rigidity, like oil and water, being created. It's almost like a very, very, very diluted version of like what you would call witchcraft, right? And how people see it as like demonic because it could go against divine will because you're taking in like your own personal power. But if you use computer science words, you know, it doesn't sound so scary. But look at what it's done for the collective. At some point, we lost the plot from connecting with one another to this being the main function of disconnect. And if this is all we think reality is, and we are intentionally being fed the worst of the worst without being given solutions, without being given really hope, or if we're being given something positive, more often than not, it's consumerist related. What can you buy? How can you feel lesser than? And that's the only reason this content made you feel good, because you have to escape yourself. Anyway, little daily dose of reality check.